Constantinople had a secret. The most sophisticated city in the world, the city of the Hagia Sophia and the Hippodrome and the Great Palace and the accumulated wealth of 7 centuries of Roman and Byzantine imperial power, kept its most dangerous men in a barracks complex near the palace walls and paid them in gold to protect the emperor from everyone else. They were called the Varangian Guard. Varangian came from the Norse word verir, oaths, pledges, the binding promises that structured Norse social and political life. The Varangians were the oathmen, the pledged warriors, the men who had sworn directly to the emperor's person rather than to the Byzantine military hierarchy. They were the emperor's insurance policy against the Byzantine military hierarchy itself. A force that answered to no Byzantine general, that could not be suborned by court factions, that had no stake in Byzantine political games because they were not Byzantine. They were Norse. And they were, by the judgment of every Byzantine commander who had ever watched them fight, the most effective shock troops in the empire's army. Harald entered this world in 1034 as a rank-and-file guardsman. He left it in 1041 as its effective commander, with enough gold to buy a Norwegian throne and a reputation that the Norse sagas would spend 2 centuries trying to adequately describe. 7 years. 4 continents. 1 poem cycle about a girl in Kiev that kept getting longer. He spent 7 years fighting for the Byzantine Empire across 4 continents: Anatolia, Bulgaria, Sicily, the Holy Land, the streets of Constantinople itself. He became the most effective commander in the Varangian Guard. He accumulated gold in quantities the Norse world had never seen. And he wrote poetry about a girl the entire time. This is the episode where Harald becomes the legend. Subscribe, like the video, and let's get into it. The Varangian Guard was not what most people imagine when they hear Viking warriors in Byzantium. It was not a collection of wild Norse berserkers kept in a cage and released on enemies. It was a professional military unit organized along Byzantine lines, equipped with a combination of Norse and Byzantine weapons and armor, trained in Byzantine tactical doctrine, and integrated into the Byzantine military command structure in ways that required its members to function as part of a sophisticated combined arms military system rather than as independent Norse warbands. The Guard's signature weapon was the 2-handed Danish axe, the peleikeis in Byzantine sources, a weapon that Byzantine infantry could not effectively counter and that produced results in close combat that the sources describe with the specific admiration that professional soldiers give to tools that work. But the Guard also used Byzantine equipment. They wore Byzantine lamellar armor over their Norse chainmail. They carried Byzantine swords alongside their axes. They trained in Byzantine formation tactics, learned Byzantine signals and commands, operated within Byzantine logistical systems that were considerably more sophisticated than anything the Norse world had developed. Harald adapted. He had been adapting to new military environments since he was 15, the steppe warfare of the Kievan Rus, the forest fighting of the Polish campaign. Byzantium was more complex than either, but the principle was the same. Learn the system, master the system, become more useful to the people running the system than anyone who had come before you. He started by being the best axeman in the Guard. He progressed to being the best tactical commander in the Guard. It took him approximately 3 years. The Byzantine Empire in the 1030s had a problem on its eastern frontier. The Seljuk Turks, a new power emerging from the Central Asian steppe, recently converted to Islam, militarily innovative and expansionist, were pressing against the empire's Anatolian territories. The Emperor Michael IV had inherited a frontier that required constant military attention, and the Varangian Guard was deployed east as part of the response. Harald's first major Byzantine campaign was in Anatolia. The sources are frustratingly vague about the specific operations. The Byzantine Chronicles record the campaigns at the level of commanders and outcomes, not at the level of individual Varangian guardsmen, however effective. What can be reconstructed is the nature of the warfare: fast-moving operations in difficult terrain, the specific challenge of fighting Seljuk cavalry with infantry-based Byzantine formations, the logistical complexity of maintaining an army in the Anatolian interior. Harald distinguished himself. The Heimskringla records, with the specific Norse enthusiasm for Harald's achievements that require some discount for hagiography, that he led assaults on fortified positions, that he was consistently placed in the most difficult assignments, that his tactical judgment in the field produced results that the Byzantine commanders noticed. He was promoted. In the Byzantine military hierarchy, promotion was slow and political and dependent on patronage networks that a foreign guardsman could not easily access. Harald found ways to access them anyway. He cultivated relationships with Byzantine commanders. He learned Greek, not just enough to communicate but enough to argue, to negotiate, to present himself as an intelligence rather than a weapon. He was an intelligence. The weapons part was also real. 1038 The Byzantine Empire wanted Sicily back. The island had been under Arab control since the 9th century, a loss that the empire had never fully accepted and periodically attempted to reverse. In 1038, the emperor dispatched an army under the general Georgios Maniakes to reconquer it. The force included the Varangian Guard, Norman mercenaries under William Iron Arm, and Byzantine regular forces. Harald went to Sicily. The Sicilian campaign of 1038 to 1040 is the best documented period of Harald's Byzantine service, partly because it produced two major figures whose careers generated extensive documentation: Harald himself and William Iron Arm, the Norman who would eventually father the conquest of England, and partly because the campaign's outcomes were dramatic enough to attract Byzantine chroniclers' attention. The campaign began well. Maniakes was a capable commander, brutal, demanding, contemptuous of everyone around him, but genuinely effective in the field. He drove the Arab forces back across Sicily in a series of engagements that the sources describe in detail. The Varangian Guard performed as the Guard always performed, as the assault force that went first into the most difficult positions. Harald led the Guard's assault elements. 13 Arab cities fell during the campaign. The sources, both Norse and Byzantine, record that Harald personally led the attacks on several of them. The Norse tradition credits him with direct assault tactics that the Byzantine commanders found unorthodox and effective. Small fast-moving forces hitting fortifications at night, exploiting breaches before defenders could organize a response, the specific Viking tactical heritage of the raid applied to Byzantine siege warfare. It worked. Then it stopped working. Not because of military failure, the military situation was favorable. It stopped because Maniakes and his Norman mercenaries had a dispute. William Iron Arm insulted Maniakes. Maniakes had William flogged. The Normans left. Without their cavalry, the Byzantine force lost the mobile element that had been making the campaign function. The reconquest stalled. Maniakes was recalled to Constantinople in disgrace. Harald went with the Guard back to the capital. He had fought across Sicily. He had accumulated gold from the campaign's plunder. The Byzantine system allocated a share of plunder to the Guard, and successful campaigns produced substantial shares. He was 23 years old and he was becoming wealthy in a way that Norse warriors did not normally become wealthy. He added another verse to the poem. While the Sicilian campaign was still in progress, the Byzantine Empire had been dealing with a rebellion in Bulgaria. Peter Delyen, a Bulgarian nobleman who claimed descent from the old Bulgarian royal house, had raised a major revolt in 1040, exploiting the Byzantine population's exhaustion with heavy taxation and the political chaos produced by the rapid turnover of emperors that characterized the period. The revolt spread across Bulgaria and Macedonia, threatening Byzantine control of the Balkans. The Guard was deployed north. Harald's role in the Bulgarian campaign is less well documented than Sicily, but the Norse sources credit him with actions in the suppression of the revolt that further enhanced his reputation. The Bulgarian campaign was less about pitched battle and more about the grinding work of retaking fortified positions, managing a hostile population, and maintaining military pressure across a wide dispersed area. Exactly the kind of difficult sustained operations that separated effective commanders from merely brave ones. He was effective. By 1041, Harald had been in Byzantine service for 7 years. He had fought in Anatolia, Sicily, Bulgaria, and, the sources mention it briefly, in the Holy Land, where he apparently made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem that the Norse tradition later elaborated into an armed procession through the Holy Land that may or may not be entirely accurate. He had accumulated, by various estimates, enough gold to be a significant political force in Scandinavia. He had also accumulated something else. A problem. 1048 The Emperor Michael IV died. His nephew Michael V. Caliphates, the Caulker as he was nicknamed from his family's origins in the ship-caulking trade, took the throne. Michael V was not a successful emperor. He lasted approximately 4 months before being deposed in a popular revolt that the sources describe with the specific Byzantine detail of an imperial overthrow. Crowds in the streets of Constantinople, the Empress Zoe producing herself to the public to rally support, the new emperor hiding in a monastery before being captured, blinded, and exiled. Harald was in Constantinople for all of this. The sources, and this is where things get complicated, suggest that Harald was involved in the overthrow, though the nature and extent of his involvement is unclear. The Byzantine chronicles record that Varangian guardsmen participated in the capture of Michael V. The Norse sources go considerably further, claiming that Harald personally blinded the emperor. The blinding claim is almost certainly exaggerated. Byzantine sources would have noted if a Varangian guardsman had personally blinded the emperor rather than if guardsmen had participated in the capture. The Norse tradition had a tendency to place Harald at the center of every dramatic event in which he was tangentially involved. What is clear is that the political situation in Constantinople became, for Harald, suddenly dangerous. The new empress, Zoe, restored to power, subsequently married to a new emperor Constantine IX, had reasons to be suspicious of a Varangian guard commander who had accumulated significant political connections, enormous personal wealth, and a reputation that made him a potential power broker in Byzantine court politics. Harald was arrested. The sources give different accounts of what he was charged with: theft of imperial property, improper accumulation of wealth from campaigns, involvement in court intrigue. The charges were probably a mixture of pretext and substance. He was genuinely wealthy, and Byzantine emperors were genuinely suspicious of wealthy foreign commanders. He was imprisoned in Constantinople. He escaped. The Norse sources are enthusiastic about the escape and probably unreliable in their details. What can be confirmed is that Harald left Byzantine service in 1041 to 1042, took his accumulated gold, assembled his men and began the journey north. He was done with Byzantium. Byzantium had given him what he needed. He left Constantinople with enough gold to fill several Norse longships. He had the poem. He had been writing it for 7 years, 16 stanzas now, each one recording a campaign or a battle or a feat of arms, each one ending with the refrain about the golden-haired girl of Gardariki who wouldn't have him. He was going back to Kiev. The situation there had changed. Magnus, his nephew Olaf's son, the 10-year-old who had sailed home from Kiev to claim the Norwegian throne in 1035, was now 27 years old and had been king of Norway for 12 years. He was also, since 1042, king of Denmark, a double throne that made him the most powerful ruler in Scandinavia. Harald was the dead king's half-brother, returning from the most prestigious military service available to any Norse warrior, with more gold than most Norse kings saw in a lifetime. He was also, still, the man who had tied his hand to his sword at 15 and refused to stop. He arrived at Kiev. He saw Yaroslav. He asked for Elizaveta. This time the answer was different.